Good evening, everyone. I'd like to call to order the Bloom Carroll Local School District's Board of Education meeting on November 9th, 2020 in the middle school library at 6 p.m. Mr. Bigham, roll call, please.
Mr. Abbott?
Present.
Mr. Bratton?
Present.
Mr. Jimmy Johnson?
Present.
Mr. Rod Johnson?
Present.
Mrs. Sherman?
Present.
All right, number 3, pledge of allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Number 4, approval of the agenda. We do have an addendum add here on page 4, on page 3. It will be 9D, number 6. You want to add it there on page 3, and then we'll have a voting line right after that. Yeah, 9D6. And then on 11B, under the elementary PTO meeting, the second character, we will add in 6:30 for that Shirky's Pizza Zone for the time and location we read it. Any other questions in regards to the agenda? All right, hearing none, may I get a motion, please?
So moved.
Motion made by Mr. Abbott, second by Mr. Bratton. Mr. Bigham?
Mr. Abbott?
Yes.
Mr. Bratton?
Yes.
Mr. Jimmy Johnson?
Yes.
Mrs. Sherman?
Yes.
And Mr. Rod Johnson?
Yes. Number 5, approve the minutes from the following meetings. A, our October 12th, 2020 regular meeting, and B, our October 28th, 2020 planning meeting. I did not see any errors. Did anybody catch anything?
I did not. Good.
All right, hearing none, may I get a motion, please?
So moved.
Second.
Motion made by Mrs. Sherman, seconded by Mr. Jimmy Johnson. Mr. Bigham?
Mrs. Sherman?
Yes.
Mr. Jimmy Johnson?
Yes.
Mr. Abbott?
Abstain?
Mr. Bratton?
Yes.
Mr. Rod Johnson?
Yes. All right, number 6, public participation. A citizen granted permission to address the board shall speak no longer than 3 minutes at one time, except by consider the majority of the board members present. A maximum of 30 minutes of public participation may be permitted at each meeting. The Bloom Carroll Board of Education policy requires that the individual's names not be used as part of a complaint or concern being stated to the board during public participation part of the agenda. The board rests in its president the authority to terminate any remarks which may be defamatory, abusive, or otherwise cause undue interruption or interference with the orderly conduct of business. Mr. Abbott, do we have anybody signed up for public participation? Thank you. All right. I'm sorry if I have mispronounced your names, anybody. Looks like our first person up we have is Vonda Fischera.
Yes,
Okay. If you would please approach the podium right over here.
of course.
Thank you.
First of all, thank you for letting me speak this evening. I did speak to Mr. Hahn this morning, and I've done some more homework and research since then, and speaking to some other advisors. One of those being a former board member. So I'm reaching out because my son is one of those that suffered some bullying recently. What my post on Facebook did is it brought to light how many other students are suffering and afraid to come forward. I have more than a dozen direct messages from parents whose students do talk to them. And this brought to light something that we're missing in our middle school. So I went and I looked up, what does the Ohio Department of Education require for us to do for these students when they want to report anonymously because they're afraid of putting a target on their back? I was bullied. I'm a Bloom Carroll graduate. I was not the typical student that would get bullied that somebody wants to stereotype. I was a cheerleader. I hung out with the people that were playing sports. I also hung out with the troubled students. And because I was bullied, what a lot of people didn't know, even though I was on the dean's list in college, I left my junior year of high school here with a 1.9 GPA and had to go into therapy because I was contemplating suicide. But I was a cheerleader that hung out with them. So here is my student who's a good student, and so are several of the students that I'm getting these words from. What are we missing? We're missing a electronic way to report anonymously. I have been told we have procedures in place. We do. The Ohio Department of Education in section 6.3 says that students who make informal complaints as set forth may request to be used, to have their name used. But they should be allowed and given an opportunity to report anonymously. With what we have in place right now, we are assuming that all of these students have an electronic means when they leave this building. And they don't. Quarantine already taught us that. I know you all know this. It also says in 6.4, false reporting. We have to have a way to make sure the students understand they can't do false reporting either. I'm suggesting more of a ballot box. It works. My mother used it at Ohio State in the OR. That's how they identified that there was a surgeon being verbally abusive to scrub techs. A scrub tech is never going to speak out against a surgeon, so they put ballot boxes in the employee bathrooms. They also encourage words of positive affirmation. So it eliminates the stereotype that you're dropping a note and it's a negative turnout on somebody. So you reward positive notes, you get some negative notes, but maybe you find the hungry child. Maybe you find the child whose parent is being abusive and they don't have a way to come to you. They don't want to walk to the office. They don't want to go to the teacher. They don't have access to electronics at home. They have to have another way. Okay? Maybe we do get 99 rabbits that run us around. But maybe we find that one child who needs help. Maybe we intervene on one suicide. Is the 1% not worth trying a box for a month for a note? What are we going to lose? Time? Note paper? I really think we need a non-electronic way for these kids to say something, to speak up. But again, I want to reward the ones like the Bulldog Award. The Bulldog Award is in place. It works. My son helped a student earlier this school year. He got a Bulldog Award. He was so excited. And then his name was drawn out for a Starbucks card. That's pretty cool. So why not use the box for both so that you're fishing through the positive notes to find the one that needs help? That's what I'm looking for. There was a homeroom teacher out west. This went around Facebook. It was viral. I think it was 2 years ago that she did something very similar. And it was just something she did in her class. And she required every student every day to put a note in the box as they left her room. It could say nothing. It could be blank. It could say hi. But she intervened on one suicide. So that box and every note that she fished through every day saved one life. And that's what I'm looking for. Is my child at risk of going down that rabbit hole? I sure hope not. I hope that I am that parent he can talk to and that I can report anonymously, and that was what I was given today. You can report anonymously. Your student talked to you. You called us. You're right. My student talked to me. He has 4 parents, and he gets off the bus at his grandparents' house. So he has 6 people, and he told me. But what if the other students who leave the note don't tell any of their parents, that they can't confide in them? The last 2 weeks have been very emotional with the election and everything. I know it's in the households. Not every household is neutral. If that student's having a problem at school, who do they go to? So that's what I'm here for. I want to help everybody. This has gone beyond helping my child. We've got him managed. We identified where his challenges were. We're making progress. Mr. Young has been amazing. I met with him today in person. I wanted to formally apologize in person any negative comments that came to him publicly, because that was not my intention on my post. I needed help, and I needed information, and I needed stories. And he was amazing. My student and 6 others said 1 monitor on the playground isn't enough. They know when they're not looking. And so they're getting around it, and that's when the bullying is happening. So he was amazing, and today he put 2 out there. Because not only did my son have trouble, but there were a couple of 5th graders that got into a fight last week and ended up in suspension. And that was one of the stories I got. A student who's been bullied, who had too much and fought back. So already we made a little bit of change. I'm saying our district is doing a good job. I love Bloom Carroll. I wouldn't put him here otherwise. We're open enrolled. I want him here. He wants to be here. I'm just saying I think we can do better, because Bloom Carroll is better. That's all I have tonight.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, up next we have Deanna Miller.
I only wrote that to speak if I had anything that she did not cover. Oliver really covered everything.
Okay,
So I
all
would
right.
say thank you.
Thank you. All right. Up next, we have our school nurses, the school updates. Looks like Ms. Bigum and Ms. Williams are here.
All right, hello. I'm Mrs. Bigum, if you guys don't know, and then this is Mrs. Williams. So I guess just a few updates. We did go ahead, we got some new batteries for all of the AEDs. They're all up to date, ready to go if we were to need those. Shauna actually had, I don't know if you guys know, we had to have isolation rooms in each of our buildings just in case we do get a possible COVID case. So she ordered some, like a baby monitor type, so if anyone else besides the nurses has to sit with that child before the parent gets there, they can sit on the outside and still see the kid and be safe, and not have to worry or put themselves in any kind of danger sitting in there with the kiddo. So she was able to order those.
They're video two-way talk, and then also temperature-based, so you can make sure that they're not.
Yeah, so the rooms are super hot. I guess the only other thing, we just answer phone calls all day long. Parents calling in, asking if they should keep their kids home. You know, we get calls from everybody all day long. That's pretty much all I do anymore, is just answer the phone. And parents are doing a great job of keeping their kids home when they are sick. Kids are doing a great job with their masks in school so far, so.
I truly appreciated the transparency from the community. People calling just to ask, just to, get that reassurance. Am I doing what I should be doing, or should I be doing more when it comes to staying home and such, and asking great questions? I feel like from K through 5 and even, phone calls in between.
Is there anything that, we can do, Mr. Hahn can do to help you guys out in any capacity? I know it sounds like you're getting bombarded daily, but is there something that we can do or that you've thought of to make your day go a little more smooth?
No, I feel like we've done a really good bit. Like before the school started, I put together a spreadsheet to be able to have clear communication throughout this whole thing, and I feel like, we're in constant, I feel like support-wise, I couldn't ask for a better place to work right now, honestly.
That's good.
Yeah, no, I don't, the only thing we do have a lot of parents question, like the board, like the number that we're reporting. A lot of people, they don't question me, but she gets a lot of phone calls that wanting to know if we're reporting accurately, which I think people are misunderstanding that we only report actual positive cases versus the hundreds that are getting tested. So I don't know if there's a better way to communicate sometimes to parents on that end.
Or even if it's maybe clearer on the website. Like I had a couple today, and because I know that the Department of Health is backed up on their numbers, so I think that's where some people maybe think there's differences, like in our numbers versus Fairfield. So when I talked to the parents, they had a better understanding, but I guess the way to get to that dashboard seems confusing to them.
The reporting order was issued on September 3rd and became
Right.
effective September 15th. That's the date from that point on. The other part of the process is we report every positive case
Right.
that we receive. They copy me on the emails to the Director of Nursing at the Fairfield Department of Health. That's what the order requires.
Right.
And then from there, the Fairfield Department of Health notifies the Ohio Department of Health, who updates the coronavirus.ohio.gov schools website for data. I see what they send every day. It's right in line with what I'm tracking. And, at that point, it's up to ODH and the Fairfield Department of Health to make sure that they are posting that information. We also post it on our COVID dashboard on our district website under the district tab. We update it every Friday with active cases, and you can see active cases in the district.
Other than that, I don't have any, it's just different every day. Like
Yeah.
today I answer the phone a lot, tomorrow I might not get a single phone call, so I don't.
I just want to say thank you to both of you. We have worked together throughout the spring, quite a bit in the summer, going into the school year to be prepared. Both of you have done an amazing job. As you know, we talk every day. We talked on Sunday. We talk on weekends. We were working yesterday, and I appreciate both of you and the challenges that we're that we're under. So keep up the good work.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
All right. We have Mark Williams with Bloom Carroll Athletic Boosters.
Mr. Lon, Mr. Bigham, President Johnson, members of the board, thank you for the opportunity to speak to you for a couple minutes tonight about the latest with the athletic boosters. My name is Mark Williams. I am the treasurer. Amanda Mullen, our president, is here with me as well for any questions that you all may have. I just want to take a minute to review last year and talk about some of the issues that we're dealing with. We had a really busy year last year, a lot of stuff that we were involved in. Up until the spring, of course, we were involved some of our projects, and we bought some new signage for the wrestling team in that area where they practice that shows off some of their accomplishments. We bought wrestling uniforms. We bought golf bags for the boys team, cheerleading warm-ups. We paid for new flooring for the weight room. As part of some, I think we need to set some area where we're going to be looking at for some other improvements as well. We have invested in a new shot put pit that is, we'd hope to get finished this year, but because the coronavirus has been put off. We bought our first set of cross-country uniforms a year ago. Prior to that, they'd always use track uniforms, and that's a pretty cool thing. You all invested in mats for the wrestling area. We contributed to that. And we also bought track uniforms and softball uniforms. This year so far, we have purchased new football pants and headsets for the coaching staff. The big thing, of course, right now is the big thing that we're all experiencing, that's the coronavirus. Because of the coronavirus, we lost all of our spring concessions from track. Our fall concessions, amazingly, we had fall concessions, and they actually weren't as bad as what I had anticipated. We also lost the booster drive, and of course, there was no 50-50 during football games this fall. So at this point, I put some numbers together over the weekend. I haven't even told our group yet about this. Since the spring, I've estimated our revenue losses at somewhere in the neighborhood of $35,000. And of course, after expenses, it probably would be somewhere in the neighborhood of about $23,500. The good news is this is a really light year for us, expense-wise. And we, coming into this year, we're in really good shape financially because we had some discussions with you all in the prior years about taking on another big project. So I think we're able to ride this out, at least for this year. The big thing, I think, is trying to get back to normal. There was, of course, the great news I think you all saw today about the Pfizer vaccine and the possibility that may be. I'm hopeful that will get approved before the end of the year, and maybe we can all get that vaccine that those who want it, and we can start getting back to normal sometime next summer. Of course, my big question is, even if we get back to normal, will people still be coming? Will people come back to all of our events next fall as we typically expect? So that's the thing I'm most concerned about at this point. One thing I'm really thrilled about, the best news for me, is that we now have a whole new generation of people that have come in and gotten involved in the boosters. I think that was an issue I raised with you all a year ago. Amanda and several others have gotten involved. I'm feeling much better about that and much more confident about the future of our group as old guys like me start to look at stepping away the next couple of years. So that's really all I have.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks,
Thank you
Mark.
so much, it was, appreciate it.
All right, moving on. We have our athletic director, Mr. Little, speaking next.
He's like, oh, you guys pass these around, make sure 6 feet apart.
Thank you, sir.
think you all know, usually I come in the summer. That gives me an opportunity to recap the whole prior year and go through fall, winter, spring. And because of all the events that have occurred, we didn't do that. So I'm really gonna recap the fall for now and just add a few things. So I gave you some of those things. I'm certainly not gonna insult your intelligence and go through those word for word, but as you're aware, for really the second year in a row, we're having a banner fall season. Similar to last year, but even a little better. We won the league in 6 different sports this fall. And just so you're aware, I listed those head coaches. Within our league, there is no true Coach of the Year award. So they're called Coach of the Year, but it's an automatic. You win the league, you're Coach of the Year. They eliminated like a vote on that years and years ago, even before I was in AD. So not that they shouldn't get that recognition, but it's an automatic within our league. Silas Stiegel, who just ran in the state cross country meet Saturday, he actually won the league meet as an individual. He was runner-up in the district, 5th at the regional, and he was 35th Saturday at the Fortress Field event. So he had a great senior year. The boys team qualified for the regional for the first time in a long time. Won the league for the second year in a row. To Mark's point with cross country, that program continues to boom with growth. Luke does an outstanding job there. So, Chase Allwood was League Player of the Year in soccer. I know you're aware, football just Saturday was qualified for the state Final Four for the first time in school history. And again, for you guys and gals that have been around for a while, I got here in 06, and I can remember we struggled to win a game then. We were finishing towards the bottom of the league, and it just didn't look like we would ever get it turned around. To come, a 15-year period where we're Final Four in the state of Ohio has just been an enormous leap for that program. They've been successful the past 6 or 7 years, but for those of you that were around before that, it hasn't always been the case. So Coach Bartholomew and his staff and our athletes there have just been outstanding. So, the other sheet I gave you there is just for your information. That's how they factor the all sports champion. So it's basically any sport that's sponsored by the league, you have to have more than half the teams in the league have it. So like for tennis, we won the league, but we get 5 points because there's only 5 teams in the league. So in most sports like football, it says 7 because Liberty Union currently is not in the league for football. So first place gets 7, second place gets 6, and so on and so on. So we're in the lead for that all sports award. We actually were tied for the lead at the end of winter sports last year, and then spring sports was canceled. So I consider ourselves the champ last year, but I don't think officially, and I have to go back and look, I think it was 1984, believe it or not. It's the last time that we won that award. So we're on pace, pressure on winter and spring to finish that out, but we've had an outstanding fall. We had 24 kids in the fall earn first team league honors. Another 20 were awarded second team league honors. And as you're aware, again, with all of the COVID protocols in place, I'm just a year and a half removed from coaching myself, and glad I'm not doing it. To see what our guys and gals do every day, they've been outstanding. And the kids, but man, oh man, all of the challenges that you have to go through, period, as an athlete and a coach in normal times, to worry about all the things you have to worry about, and now have to worry about social distancing and wearing masks the whole time. We'll be COVID observed by the governor's office again this Saturday. That'll be the 6th time, I believe. And we've done really well on all those observations. But it's just a lot to think about for those guys and gals, and they've been really good. The Final Four appearance, again, as you know, I've been an AD now for 19 years. And knowing what kind of effect something like that has on a school culture and a community culture is just immeasurable. Again, I can go back to 06 and go back to the school I was previously at. When things don't go well, the fall just sets the tone for your school year. And when you struggle athletically in the fall, you just kind of mope through the year. It just never quite feels right. So even if you don't play football, you're not in the band, you're not a cheerleader, there's just some excitement right now. And it stinks that we can't get the whole community there Saturday, but we're going to get as many people as we can get there. And again, that's obviously been the biggest challenge for me is ticketing with capacity limits, and it's going to be even potentially a bigger challenge in the winter. We just have to call with Lieutenant Governor Houston and some of the OHSA members at 4:30 that I was on, and it's moving forward, but it's just going to be difficult to get through, and we'll continue to do what we're supposed to do. To echo Mark Williams' comment of budget constraints, again, just to give you an idea, with football, usually an average through 5 home games, which is a normal fall, we bring in about $25,000 on ticket sales. Now this year you have 3 home games, and a good gate receipt is $2,000. So you're bringing in $6,000 versus $25,000. But your expenses for football, which are about $25,000, don't decrease because you have less home games or less people. So trying to manage that as best I can. Coaches have been good about asking for needs and not wants, but there's just certain things for every sport that you have to have. There's certain things we've had to buy more of because of COVID and cleaning supplies and that kind of stuff. So we're managing. I know Mr. Bingham laughs each year, but managed to stay in the black. I don't know if I can make that promise today for this fiscal year, but we're going to try to get to that point. So in the winter, just to give you an idea, anything that's hosted in the middle school gym, we will live stream to anybody. It'll be free. And it's much better than what we use outside because of the technology we have in the gym. We have that camera that's mounted. It instantaneously does it. The scoreboard will be on there all the time. There's still no commentary, but it'll be a little smoother than the fall. Fall didn't go poorly, but so anybody that can't get a ticket will at least be able to play in that gym to watch those games. The capacity for the winter in the middle school gym, you're looking at about 135 tickets on the home side of the gym, about 90 on the away side. We've also got to factor in, you need space there for pep band that has to socially distance. You're also going to have to use probably a row, maybe 2 behind each team bench to socially distance the bench itself. So that'll take up some space. So there's a chance we could sell a few more tickets in the one section, but that's about where we're at. The high school gym, the 2 lower bowls, if you will, are about 50 tickets each approximately. We'll open that mezzanine, that adds about another 66 tickets. So you're looking at like 110 home tickets. We're really going to limit visiting spectators really to 2 per athlete is what we'll do. That's going to be somewhat consistent going to our opponents. Offering 90 for home varsity games in our gym, that's as many as anybody can offer within our league, so it's really going to be crunched when we go to away games. A lot of them are just going to be 2 tickets per kid, which really narrows it down. Makes it difficult. So that's really all I have, and that's about as short as I can make it. I think that's why we moved to November.
Chad, I don't know if I missed it. The seating capacity, that is the Ohio Department of Health guidelines, 15% of your indoor or outdoor venue. That is not a district decision.
Yeah, 15%.
We're just abiding by it.
Yeah, no more than 300. So our 15% is 270, and you take the lower of. So the most we can put in is 270, but again, even that when we factor in pep band and some of the room needed to get player benches distance, it's going to cut back on some ticketing as well. So. Any other questions?
Great job.
Great. Thank
Keep
you.
it up. Thanks,
Thank you,
Jamie.
sir.
Okay, number 7, treasurer's recommendations and reports. Mr. Bingham?
Yeah, item A is approve the October financial statements. Total expense $13,707,783.98, including just over $6.3 million in the consortium expenses. This will be brief as we have most of this. It feeds into item B with the forecast. But page 15, I believe, on your electronic copy, this was a little bit of, like I told the Finance Committee prior to this meeting, nail biting and sweating here as we get the second quarterly payment for our income tax. As you know, if you looked at, and I included this in your executive summary, if you recall the July payment, mostly due to the delay with the income tax filing, it's normally April 15th and was pushed back to July 15th. We lost quite a bit of revenue. If you follow the line across there, a little over $485,000 that was lost. Again, we hoped it would be recouped in October. And if you, as you go down there and look at October of 19 compared to October of 20, it was in fact recouped, $495,000. So it was almost dollar for dollar that we were able to recoup from the delayed filing, which is certainly good news. And on top of that, we were not expecting growth from current withholdings, those individuals who are paying the income tax within their paychecks as opposed to paying them all at once on the filings. So all in all, the October collection basically brought us back to almost even. If you look at the bottom line there in terms of our fiscal year-to-date income tax collections at this time this year as compared to last year. So we were projecting pretty much a pretty significant decrease throughout the year, and so far that October payment has really brought us back to almost even. So I'll have a little bit of more of that, of how that impacts the forecast. But any questions on the financial statements or the checks written during the month?
Opinions?
Great news. All right, hearing no questions, may I get a motion, please?
Second?
Motion made by Mr. Bratton, second by Mr. Abbott. Mr. Bigham?
Mr. Bratton?
Yes.
Mr. Abbott?
Yes.
Mr. Jimmy Johnson?
Yes.
Mrs. Sherman?
Yes.
Mr. Rod Johnson?
Yes.
Item B is approve an updated 5-year forecast for fiscal year 21 through 25 and submit to the Ohio Department of Education. The forecast is required by law to be filed at least twice a year, once in November and once in May. The format is dictated by the Department of Education. The executive summary, that it's basically a simplified and condensed, concise look at the district finances is on page 29. I'll post this packet upon approval to the website tomorrow. Before we kind of look at page 29, I'd like from accountability purposes, pages 31 through 43 are notes, required notes that basically, if you had a question about a specific line item, why it changed, why there was a significant fluctuation one way or another, it should be explained in those individual notes. So I won't go through that tonight, but if you see something in there or if, we want to discuss this in greater detail at a future meeting, please let me know. But for purposes of tonight's meeting, if you look at page 44, from a continuity and an accountability standpoint, I always like to, instead of just throwing out the forecast, compare it to where the last semi-annual forecast was in May. And that's what page 44 does. You can see it's highlighted up there, current forecast compared to the prior one. And as we look at fiscal 21, there are really only 3 line items that have changed since May. And obviously, there were a lot of unknowns in May, and we had really, I think, gotten to a conservative point thinking that a certain number of these revenue line items were going to significantly decrease. We talked about the income tax. We've bumped that not all the way back. I still think there might be a decrease with these next 2, but certainly it's better than it looked in May. Property tax, we had calculated a higher rate of delinquency, late payments. That has not been the case, and according to the county auditor, the countywide has been very strong collection rates, even higher than pre-COVID, so that's been good news. And the last area, the unrestricted grants and aid, is basically just the state funding. We had the $435,000 cut last year. That has not been recouped. We're still being funded at that level. However, from the state, what we're hearing is do not expect an additional cut on top of what we were cut last spring. So we had originally had an additional cut of you see the 413,949 on that report. So you add those 3 in, and that, of course, changes our revenue by almost $1 million. That it seems like a lot on paper, but it really wasn't when you look at where we were in May, what we thought, and kind of some of the new data that we have here in November. So again, the bottom line, back on page 29, you can see there we're still projecting deficit spending in each of these fiscal years. However, certainly it's not like it could have been or like we were projecting back in May. For 2 things that really would help us going forward, one is just the state funding, even just to get back to the pre-COVID level, not even looking at the increase that Mr. Hahn had emailed out about some of these new funding bills, but even just getting back to where we were and getting back the income tax growth that we were seeing the last 4 or 5 fiscal years really is the key as we move forward. Any questions on the forecast? Again, I know that's a lot to throw out there, and certainly if we want to go in more detail, maybe at a planning session, or if you have questions, certainly let me know. But those were kind of the key factors that I wanted to hit on this evening.
Really good news, actually.
Yeah.
Any questions?
Okay. I'll go ahead and make the motion. Motion made by Mr. Rod Johnson, second by Mr. Jimmy Johnson. Oh, I'm sorry, yes. Mr. Rickman.
Mr. Rod Johnson?
Yes.
Mr. Jimmy Johnson?
Yes.
Mr. Abbott?
Yes.
Mr. Bratton?
Yes.
Mrs. Sherman?
Yes.
Item C is asking board approval for the fund-to-fund transfer from general fund to the energy conservation debt, $40,735. This was a loan taken out back in 2012 to do HVAC improvements. The energy savings annually far exceed what the debt payment is, so it's a win-win. But to pay the debt, we have to transfer, which does require board approval.
Any questions? May I get a motion, please?
So moved. Second.
Motion made by Mrs. Sherman, second by Mr. Abbott. Mr. Baker?
Mrs. Sherman?
Yes.
Mr. Abbott?
Yes.
Mr. Bratton?
Yes.
Mr. Jimmy Johnson?
Yes.
Mr. Rod Johnson?
Yes.
Item D is approve the following fund and appropriation. This is another grant within the CARES Act, broadband connectivity, $151,466.16. This is a short time window. The money, we just basically got the money. It must be spent by December 31st. Mr. Thomas and the Technology Department has done a nice job with the project that will include increasing our bandwidth, wireless bandwidth on this campus, as well as the coverage. The second part of the grant, I kind of had him email me just to make sure I got it right here. Purchase 145 cellular-enabled Chromebooks with 2 gigabytes of service per month. These devices will be available for students and parents that need these devices at home. The devices are fully content filtered, both on and off campus, and can be used for wireless as well as cellular connectivity. So it would allow them to connect, get to the online curriculum, get to the internet without actually having wireless at home, as well as potentially coming here on campus and getting a stronger Wi-Fi signal. So certainly this grant, while it is a short time window, feels like it'll be very beneficial for not just this year, but moving forward.
Any questions? May I get a motion, please?
So moved.
Second.
Motion made by Mr. Bratton, second by Mr. Abbott. Mr. Baker?
Mr. Bratton?
Yes.
Mr. Abbott?
Yes.
Mr. Jimmy Johnson?
Yes.
Mrs. Sherman?
Yes.
Mr. Rod Johnson?
Yes.
And finally, we have a resolution to participate in the Meta bus bid program. This does not obligate us to purchase a bus. It just allows us to, if we want to purchase one, they have much more purchasing power, a much larger bid base to draw from, so they get the best bids. If we do want to purchase a bus, it would require a subsequent resolution for the board to approve, but this allows us to at least participate and look at our options.
Okay. Any questions? May I get a motion, please?
So moved.
Second.
Motion made by Mrs. Sherman, second by Mr. Bratton. Mr. Baker?
Mrs. Sherman?
Yes.
Mr. Bratton?
Yes.
Mr. Abbott?
Yes.
Mr. Jimmy Johnson?
Yes.
And Mr. Rod Johnson?
Yes. Thank you, Mr. Baker.
Thank you.
Number 8, old business. A, approve the following policy. 1, JED, student absences and excuses. Any question? Can I get a motion?
Second.
Motion made by Mr. Jimmy Johnson, second by Mr. Bratton. Mr. Baker?
Mr. Jimmy Johnson?
Yes.
Mr. Bratton?
Yes.
Mr. Abbott?
Yes.
Mrs. Sherman?
Yes.
Mr. Rod Johnson?
Yes. All right. Number 9, superintendent's recommendations and reports. Mr. Hahn.
Okay, just obviously this week we have Veterans Day coming up. Just obviously on behalf of the district, would like to thank all the veterans living in deceased for their sacrifices to our great country. And obviously our schools were limited this year due to visitors and social distancing as much as possible, but we are still doing some things. Typically, we have at the intermediate school a large event where we literally pack the Lithopolis United Methodist Church the MMC over there. And then we also have an event here in the auditorium where the primary schools, the grade levels K-2, bring in their veterans, family member as well that we recognize. We can't do those types of things right now, but we are doing drive-through parades today, and then on Wednesday, the intermediate school will be doing one as well. We're also doing lessons and activities in the classroom, teaching about the importance of Veterans Day and the contribution of veterans. So again, thank you to all veterans. Mr. Little, Mr. Bigham covered a few things tonight that I was going to bring up as well, but congratulations to all of our fall sports athletes and band members. They were also challenged, limited. The band members were limited with being able to travel this year, but the band director worked with us, and we came up with several opportunities here at home for the band to also participate. But band, cheerleaders, all athletes, great fall season, very proud of how disciplined they stayed with the safety procedures so that we were able to have seasons for our student athletes. It's been hard, especially if you're wrapping up high school the last 2 years, to go through this. Going back to the spring, you could have had a season dramatically impacted, and then to roll into maybe your senior year this fall and have the pandemic impact those opportunities is just devastating for some student athletes, but very, very proud of our staff and our families and our student athletes and what they were able to accomplish. Obviously, congratulations. We've got state qualifiers. Silas Stiegel, wanted to mention him in cross country. Ran this past weekend at the state cross country meet. And then our football program, congratulations to them, the first ever Final Four appearance for Bloom Carroll football program. So we're still playing, and we got a chance Saturday, and hopefully we get to play in the state finals. But either way, very proud of all those student athletes. Just so you're aware, parent-teacher conferences took place on November 5th for the fall, and we have another session coming up on Thursday the 12th. There's a lot of things that's been terrible about this pandemic, but there's been some things that make you kind of look at the way you do things and what are bits and pieces that you can hang on to that make the way we service our students and our families better. And one of those is parent-teacher conferences. Our staff has become very proficient. They were forced to in the spring with virtual meetings, and those are things that people did not feel comfortable with at one time back in March and April. And now being able to hold virtual meetings or conference calls, those were not typically options that we really provided. It was requiring a face-to-face conference. But the staff has been very receptive, and I hope moving forward in the future we can continue to offer virtual conferences with families. It's just more convenient. They can sit in their living room and have a conference with the teacher, or through a phone conference. So we can still offer in person, but I think one thing we can keep around would be these virtual parent-teacher conferences. Just so you know, as of Friday, we had 35% of our conference times filled. Obviously, they're much more there's much more participation in the K-4 grades and 5th and some 6th, and then it starts to kind of fade off a little bit. And, we always want all of our parents involved, K-12, but we have 35%, which is down a little bit, and I would say obviously due to the pandemic and the fact that people are, not necessarily wanting to be around each other that much with the virus. We have 1,083 conferences scheduled, so that is positive, but that's still a lot with all of our teachers. But it's I'd say it's down about, maybe for this time of year, it's down about 5% from what it typically is. Really want to acknowledge what's going on at the high school with student engagement in the Innovation Lab. We used a grant to buy some equipment. We've been working on that for the past year, and it's really up and running. And it's a really neat thing to see the students and the science and the technology and the engineering that's taking place. And they are making things and being able to sell to different departments within the district to sustain the cost of the materials and the printing of things. These tumblers and things can be purchased by the group, and then they can engrave, Bloom Carroll Bulldogs or the BC logo or the Bulldog head, and it looks professionally done. Our students are making all kinds of organs. They make organs out of, some of these different types of the plastics and things, and they design them. And our students are just really getting the jump. It's neat to go in there and see the students and staff working together and what the students are doing. So that Innovation Lab is going very well. I was going to mention the Ohio Broadband Connectivity Grant. Obviously, the district received up to $151,000. We are making campus Wi-Fi improvements externally here. Our inside, we're in really good shape. And then we were able to use some of the grant funds to purchase the cellular Chromebooks, which we can also use after the pandemic, and they can connect to our Wi-Fi. So we're taking advantage of those CARES Act dollars to help our district. And then in terms of a COVID update, obviously, globally throughout our country, Europe, South America, everywhere, cases continue to climb. There was predictions and projections that we would see a fall surge. We're certainly seeing that in our county, in our state, across the country. I think it was 49 of the 50 states saw an increase this week over last week. Just so you know, we've talked about this an awful lot over the last 7 months. Where we are right now, we have 3 active cases in our district. One of those cases is set to expire on tomorrow, so we'll be down to 2 active cases. But we have 1 at the middle school as of today, 1 staff member at the primary school, and 1 student at the high school as well. Very proud of the safety protocols and procedures that the staff has continued to follow. We've been able to avoid some quarantines. I'll be honest, we have more students quarantined due to their parent being positive, and then the children, the 2 or 3 children in the family can't come to school. There's way more children like in those situations that are quarantined than from cases here at school. We continue to work with the health department. I meet with them every Friday at 10:30, as do the other superintendents in the county. And I don't foresee at this time the county issuing an order closing schools. The Ohio Department of Health and Governor DeWine could certainly do that moving forward. It doesn't sound like they're willing to shut down the economy or schools again at this point. But I do want to point out that 3 cases in our district, that's not unusual. That's a lower percentage than what you're seeing within the county. There's over 800 active cases in the county, 157,700 people in the county in the 2010 census. So yes, this virus is among us. It's present within our community, within our state. I don't think we should be surprised, but I'm very proud of the students for wearing masks, the staff for wearing masks, the staff for the most part, social distancing so that if somebody does become positive, the close contacts and the quarantining are very limited. But we're going to continue to, back on August 20th, the county went to that level 2, to an orange, and we stayed in the hybrid for 5 weeks, 6 weeks. We didn't do a knee-jerk reaction and jump back and forth every week. We know how difficult that can be for the students and staff and families. But we're going to continue to monitor this as well. If we had an outbreak here in our school district where we could prove that a positive case resulted in these students quarantined and now they're positive and spreading to other people, that would be an outbreak. But right now, there is no evidence. Since the summer, since July, we've probably had about 80 people quarantined in our district, student and staff, and due to cases here with our students or staff. And not one of them have become positive or symptomatic that we've been made aware of. So there's a lot of quarantines going on, and we're not seeing the result of spread from the school or from student to student. So we'll just continue to be as safe as we can, but that's pretty much it for my update. Things can change daily. I mean, we were working on, yesterday evening we're working on this. Today, this morning we're working on this. It's nonstop, and people don't hear about all the, probably in the last month, probably 60, 70 people being tested, students and staff, and, we have to notify families of that school building when there's a positive case, and you only hear the positive cases. You don't hear about all the negative results coming back. So that's where we are. I don't know if you have any questions, but I'll be glad to try to answer those with my update. Okay, let's move on to 9B. Number 1, approve April 17th, 2021 as the date for the junior-senior prom to be held at the Blessing Farmstead in Lancaster, Ohio from 7 to 10 p.m., contingent upon pandemic conditions and local and state health official guidelines and requirements at that time.
Any questions? May I get a motion, please?
So moved.
Motion made by Mr. Abbott, second by Mr. Jimmy Johnson. Mr. Bigham?
Mr. Abbott?
Yes.
Mr. Jimmy Johnson?
Yes.
Mr. Bratton?
Yes.
Mrs. Sherman?
Yes.
Mr. Rod Johnson?
Yes.
Okay, 9C, under Personnel and Employment, approve the substitute list number 4 for November 2020 as submitted by the Fairfield County ESC. Number 2, approve the request for a salary column change for Haley Rose from bachelor's degree with 150 semester hours to a master's degree pursuant to receipt and verifications of official transcripts effective November 10th, 2020. Number 3, approve the following classified substitutes for the 2021 school year pending receipt of background checks. That would be Haley Stokes, Brandy Chambers, Jack Denson, John Lair, Mitchell Gangler, and Carrie Hambler for the positions listed A through F on the agenda. Number 4, approve the following request for FMLA leave of absence. Aaron Zeiler, beginning October 21st for up to 60 days. Robin Grove, beginning November 5th for up to 60 days. Rebecca Roberts, beginning November 23rd, 2020 for up to 60 days, and Janine Walker, beginning on or about February 24th for up to 60 days. Number 5, approve the employment of Denise Bloom as a long-term substitute teacher for Janine Walker at the intermediate school, effective on or about February 24th, 2021 through the end of the school year. Number 6, approve the school nurses, Nicole Begum and Shauna Williams, who are here tonight, to be compensated at the tutor hourly rate to conduct COVID case-related contact tracing on evenings and weekends through the 2021 school year. Number 7, approve the following athletic department volunteers for the 2021 school year pending timely receipt of all verifications and background checks, and that would be for Don Bear for boys and girls basketball.
Any questions? I'll make the motion.
Second.
Motion made by Mr. Rod Johnson, second by Mr. Bratton. Mr. Bigham?
Mr. Rod Johnson?
Yes.
Mr. Bratton?
Yes.
Mr. Abbott?
Yes.
Mr. Jimmy Johnson?
Yes.
And Mrs. Sherman?
Yes.
Okay, 9D, under contracts and agreements, approve an MOU with the Fairfield County Adam H. Board and the Fairfield County Educational Service Center for the implementation of prevention programs for students in ESC classrooms. Number 2, approve a contract with Campbell Speech Services to provide speech and language services per an IEP for a BC student receiving services out of the district. Number 3, approve a professional service agreement with Ohio University to provide audiology services on an as-needed basis from September 2020 through September 2021. Number 4, approve a professional service agreement with VIP Rehabilitation Services to provide teacher of visually impaired services on an as-needed basis for the 2021 school year. Number 5, approve the use of a facility agreement with the YMCA of Central Ohio, also called the Jerry L. Garver YMCA, for rental of pool space for the high school swim team effective November 4th through February 11th. From the addendum, number 6, approve a resolution to approve a contingency fee agreement and authorize anti-vaping legislation. Basically, there's similar to a class action lawsuit about the impact of vaping on youth, and we're agreeing to be part of that with the anticipation that there will be a settlement and that money will be redirected back to educational programs and equipment such as halo detectors in restrooms and things like that to help combat vaping among students. Is that it? That's it. Really.
Any questions, concerns? May I get a motion, please?
So, second?
Is that Mrs. Sherman?
Mm-hmm.
Motion made by Mrs. Sherman, second by Mr. Abbott. Mr. Bigham?
Mrs. Sherman?
Yes.
Mr. Abbott?
Yes.
Mr. Bratton?
Yes.
Mr. Jimmy Johnson?
Yes.
Mr. Rod Johnson?
Yes.
Okay, nothing under Section E, Section F, resignations, except the retirement resignation of Mary Keene, intermediate school cook, effective November 23rd, 2020. And number 2, accept the resignation of Carol Black, middle school teacher, effective May 28th, 2021. Again, greatly appreciate the service to the district. Both of those employees, Mrs. Black is a previously retired rehire. She is completing her 40th year with the district, and Mary Keene, I believe, has over 20 years, just over 20 years with the district. So they'll both be missed, and yeah, that's a long time. Something to need.
Yeah. Thanks to them. Any questions? Can I get a motion, please?
So moved.
Second. Motion made by Mr. Bratton, second by Mr. Jimmy Johnson. Mr. Bingham?
Mr. Bratton?
Yes.
Mr. Jimmy Johnson?
Yes.
Mr. Abbott?
Yes.
Mrs. Sherman?
Yes.
Mr. Rod Johnson?
Yes. All right, thanks, Mr. Hahn.
Yeah.
Thank you. Number 10, new business. A, approve January 11th, 2021 as the date of the annual organizational meeting of the board to be held at 6 p.m. in the middle school library, to be followed by the regular session of the board. In the event this meeting would be postponed due to inclement weather, the meeting will be held on January 13th, 2021 at 6 p.m. in the middle school library. Any questions?
No.
I'll make a motion.
Second.
Motion made by Mr. Rod Johnson, second by Mr. Bratton. Mr. Bingham?
Mr. Rod Johnson?
Yes.
Mr. Bratton?
Yes.
Mr. Abbott?
Yes.
Mr. Jimmy Johnson?
Yes.
Mrs. Sherman?
Yes.
All right. Number 11, board reports and information. A, Board of Education liaison updates. 1, facility management. Mr. Abbott and Mr. Johnson. Mr. Hahn, you want to give a little brief summary?
Yeah, it's going well. The weather's been cooperating out there. They have done a lot of the site seeding and grading so that we maybe have an established section of green space in some of those areas when the school opens up. It's still on time to be done in May. It's slightly under budget. So things are going well there. They're starting to put brick on the outside. There's still a section on the main section in the middle that needs to be built out. It's the administrative office area that needs to come out. Once they get the brick up in the middle section, they'll do the CMU bearing walls or the CMU walls and then wrap that with brick. But really the project's going well. I got pictures. They're painting walls, putting cabinetry in kindergarten classrooms, and it looks really nice. It truly feels like a school walking in right now.
That landscape with the seating up on a little mound, that looks beautiful.
Yeah, I've been impressed with some of the subcontractors and the quality of the work that's going on. Just clean, it's a clean site, and it's going very well. So
We have a second meeting on Friday, two
Yeah, we have
meetings
our
Friday.
meeting this Friday.
For
Yeah,
Keen-
we'll be meeting this Friday
Keen.
to talk about Keene, the building. We'll get a progress update, and we're going to talk about Keene, the building. These old schools, primary, intermediate, custodians walk around with, it's about 20 pounds of keys on their hip, and they've got to figure out which key goes to which door. These are all modern schools with access card swipes, and then very few keys to get into classrooms, administrative areas, maintenance areas. So we got to go through that process on Friday, but that's where we are.
Great. See you Friday morning, Joe, and all that. Number 2, personnel and labor management, Mr. Bratton. No. Mr. Jimmy Johnson. We kind of talked a little bit, at the finance meeting a little bit, just around some stuff, but other than that, I think it's good. OSB representative, Mrs. Sherman, Mr. Johnson, had our delegate meeting last week on the 29th. OSBA, they did their virtual conference. It sounded like it went pretty well for them. No, I don't think there's much turnout. I'm sure you guys all got all the emails from the sponsors. Really good part of it, but other than that, no updates. Number 4, policy, Mr. Abbott, Mrs. Sherman.
None.
Nothing since the last meeting.
We should be getting a new PDQ in November here pretty soon. So probably December, we need to have a policy committee meeting.
Okay.
Number 5, safety, health, wellness, Mr. Abbott, Mr. Jimmy Johnson.
Nothing any further than what was reported tonight, so.
Keep going, keep going. Number 6, finance, Mr. Bratton, Mr. Johnson.
We met with Mr. Big and Mr. Hahn right before this, dug a little deeper in the 5-year plan, got into some of the details. I think it looks good, much better than back in May.
That's awesome, great news.
Yep. All right, great. B, upcoming PTO booster Board of Education meetings. November 10th, middle school PTO meeting at 2:30 here in this location. November 10th, the elementary PTO meeting at 6:30 at Shirky's Pizza Zone. Also on November 10th, the music boosters meeting at 6:30 p.m. in the William Carroll High School Media Center. November 25th, we have the parent-teachers comp day. There will be no school on that day. Have a great long weekend, followed up with the 26th and the 27th with no school due to the holiday. December 14th, the Board of Education regular meeting will be held here at 6 p.m. And also, Mr. Williams and Mrs. Mullins back there, their athletic boosters, the same evening on the 14th at 7 p.m. in the middle school cafeteria. Any questions or concerns? May I get a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Mr. Bigham, or I'm sorry, motion made by Mrs. Sherman, second by Mr. Bratton. Mr. Bigham?
Mrs. Sherman?
Yes.
Mr. Bratton?
Yes.
Mr. Abbott?
Yes.
Mr. Jimmy Johnson?
Yes.
Mr. Rod Johnson?
Yes. Time 7 o'clock.